We are just getting to the latter part of winter now here in New Hampshire. Maple sugaring season is beginning. I have done some things in the barn over the winter, and I haven't done any update on any of that since a couple of videos late last fall toward the end of November when I was working on the flooring. I have done more work in the barn since that time, so I figured what I'd do is I would make an update video about the progress that has taken place. For the most part over the winter, I haven't been doing much other than acquiring and piling up materials for siding and future work that's going to be taking place in the spring and the summer. Let's go on in and take a look around. So having come in the door, this is that front corner. That post is the one that did snap kind of right about there where that gird is and that outlet comes in during the jacking process. So what I did is I took a scrap piece of hand hewn, which is about 8.5 by 8.5, and I actually spliced it right on there between the upper beam and the sill down bottom here. You can see I've got bolts coming through. We got 1, 2, and then down here 3 and 4. That goes clean through there with a nut on both sides. I use threaded rod for that to tie everything together. And you can see that this post is screwed down into the sill. Looking into the main part of the barn here, all but the last 12 feet, so from that rear tractor tire up to the door is only 12 feet. All but that of the floor is finished. As you look in here, we are pretty full of material. I'll explain some of what this is, but I'll also show some pictures from before all of this material was moved in here so you can see how this floor looked. This is a pretty phenomenal open space with this nice new floor, and it actually came out quite flat, almost better than I anticipated, given the way that I was able to jack up and support the posts and the members in between that are carrying the joists to make this pretty level and pretty flat, more flat than level. But regardless, it looks real good when this is open and nothing is in here. This beam here is the one that had substantial sag to it. I ended up jacking it up using a post. I put this 2x6 on there, that is screwed on over the whole length, and then I took another section of that hand-hewn timber, same as like I used for splicing the other corner post, and I set it underneath there. So I basically, in jacking, took the curve out of that. It's now flat, there's no big gap up top, and that post is transferring load directly down to the sill. So it goes all the way down to the sill member that's here, and I floored right around it, just as I did with all the other posts in the barn. With respect to all of this material here, up until this row right here, it's all 1x12 shiplap. So all of that is siding material for the barn. These stacks here are 1x8, just plain rough boards for doing trim at the corners and around doorways and all of that. I've got more of that kind of piled up over here and over there, and a little bit back in there. Let's take a look at this shiplap. So here's the shiplap. You can see it's a 1/2 inch on each side. It is rough on one side, which will be the outside of the barn. And then if I give this a flip over, it's planed on the other side, smooth on the other side. So that's the material. These are all 1x12s, or at least they were 1x12s when they were rough. They're now a little less than that due to the process of turning it into shiplap. But it came out pretty nice. I mean, there were some where the logs weren't the best and some knots blew out near the edge. But for the most part, these came out great. These are all 15 feet or more long, so that a single piece can do the full height of the eaves wall in the barn. And then where there are issues, where some blew out and things like that, in fact, you can see there's a knot that's blown out right there. This whole piece isn't great, but there's another knot blown out there. Pieces like this can give short pieces for under windows or over doors or things like that. But for the most part, the material turned out quite well. in terms of what those big white pine logs were able to produce, some of the logs weren't great for making the shiplap just because of the knots and things like that. So these are actually 1x16s by about 14 feet long that came out of a log. And then over here down bottom, those are 1x20s by about 16 feet long. So those are some of the big boards that came out of the logs that my neighbor thought, hey, these are going to come out of this. Not quite good enough to put on the machine to turn into shiplap, but I've got some nice boards here. And so what I may do with these is lay down a second layer over this floor, running the other way as runners for the tractor tires, and just to protect this floor underneath from any oil drips or anything like that. So I may very well use those as a second, just kind of a wearing surface over this floor. This final pile of material here is the lower grade stuff that just came out of the random logs that were too short based on how the trees got bucked up into logs. And so a lot of these are around 8 foot. It's a mix of 1x6, 1x8. And less attention was paid to stacking those as well for the air drying. So they're not as pretty. Some of them got staining. You can see some of that here. They're still useful. They're just not going to go in any sort of pretty application. They're just extra boards in case I need anything, or if my kids want to do any projects and stuff like that. Those boards will be great for that. They might be great for, you know, siding or flooring material on a woodshed or something else where a lower grade of material would work well. The next big thing that needs to happen in here has got to wait until we're fully in spring and the ground is all defrosted. But this sill needs to be completely replaced from that corner all the way across the drive bay over there by the front of the snowblower to that post, or actually a little bit beyond that post. The other thing is this member here also has got to be redone. You can see it was spliced at one point here with a replacement. That is now shot. I probably need to take it back almost all the way to that post. You can see with the tractor sitting up there that there is a decided sag or slope forwards, and that's because this and from this post back has all been picked up and leveled, and then the front has not been given that attention yet. I need to actually dig out the soil in front of the door to fully expose where that sill is to be able to build all the way across, and then instead of putting the soil back up, my plan is to actually construct a ramp, which might be a use for some of these 1-inch boards as decking. So that is the next big thing, is doing the sill, taking care of that, getting new joists in this area where I'm standing. I think all new joists in that area under the tractor. Getting this floor finished, and then moving on to getting the building closed in. Here's the outside where that sill is. You can see totally rotten, totally disconnected. This post isn't really sitting on anything, and all this soil needs to be dug away so that I can work that and replace that sill. I did dig this part down previously, but that needs to happen here so that I can put a new sill in there, tie everything back together, and then make a ramp. So pretty much all the material I need to finish this project is now on site. I still may need some rough sawn, green 6x8s or 8x8s to deal with the joisting in this front section. I have the 8x8s to do the sills, but I don't necessarily have the joisting, particularly for the drive bay, so I may need a few timbers for that. However, I still have a couple of logs that can get milled up, so those are just waiting for me to say what I need. Other than that, all the siding is here, the trim is here. I just need to order windows to be able to replace the windows in the barn. We're actually going to add a few more windows, but this winter in the storms, the transom over the door has almost completely blown out, and most of the panes and a couple of the other windows also have now just about completely blown out and shattered. So we're kind of right on time in terms of getting this done and getting this weather tight, as it is kind of getting to that critical point where weather would just take over. So certainly a lot to do, but a lot is done in terms of the floor And it feels good, and it's a great achievement to be as far along as I am at this point. So I'm excited about that, and I'm looking forward to getting the rest of the floor done and the sills taken care of, and then getting that new siding up and getting this thing weather tight. So that's an update. Hopefully, if this interests you, you'll stick around for some more videos as we get further into spring and I start working on this barn in earnest again.